What's going on, everyone? James Hancock here, back to talk a little Westworld. Hope everyone had a very happy Thanksgiving. Hope everybody drank their faces off and ate a lot of pumpkin pie and turkey and stuffing and all that good stuff. Had lots of interesting arguments with friends and family, and that's kind of what Thanksgiving is for. But now that the weekend is drawing to a close, we can get back to arguing about what's really important, and that is Westworld. I just saw episode 9, the well-tempered Clavier or Clavier. I'm not quite sure the correct pronunciation. I looked it up. Apparently, it's the keyboard of a musical instrument, or sometimes used to describe like a Baroque instrument like the harpsichord. But as we'll get to in a bit, it's a very well-titled episode considering the revelations that we experienced. Now, a lot of people very rightfully predicted some of the revelations that this episode revealed. But I do want to say one thing before getting into the review slash recap of the episode. I think it seems like there are a lot of people who just watch the show to see if their theories are correct. Almost it's kind of like, I mean, it's fun to make predictions, but it's almost like kind of like a really aggressive game of one-upsmanship about how accurate your predictions can be and kind of rubbing people's nose in it when their predictions turn out to be wrong. And I feel like some of these people, not all, but some are kind of missing the point of the show. I mean, the voyage is always more important than the destination. Granted, it's going to be really, really cool when all of our questions are answered, so on and so forth. But I think too many people are not savoring the journey along the way because they're so caught up in whether or not the predictions will bear fruit or not. And I just feel like, say you were to watch Game of Thrones, and in the first season, all you cared about was seeing Daenerys Targaryen come back to fight Westeros. Well, you'd have to wait 6 years to see when and if she would be successful. We don't even know if she's going to be successful, but it's taken 6 seasons for her to finally sail with an army across the narrow sea to attack Westeros. So I feel like HBO's got a great track record with storytelling, and while it's fun to debate what all the various things in the plot may signify, I feel like what we should really be enjoying is the extraordinary performances, the fact that it is an unpredictable show with a lot of twists and turns, great atmosphere, great setting, great kind of genre splicing or hybrid between Western and sci-fi, and all these things will keep me coming back. Whether or not the Men in Black and Will turn out to be the same guy, if we're dealing with 2 timelines, 3 timelines, whatever, all that stuff, it's like window dressing. It's part of like the bait that keeps us coming back, but it's ultimately not what we should be most concerned with. Now that I've finished my little rant, I do want to kind of ask everybody's help with this episode because I'm not 100% sure that I have fully digested what happened in episode 9 completely. I won't claim that I've completely wrapped my arms around what went down. I feel like I understand, but if I'm wrong, just let me know in a polite, civil way, because I'm trying to understand, not trying to tell people. I'm not saying like, this is episode 9 and I'm here to tell you what it's all about. I would like to start a conversation because I feel like I know what's going on, but I want to make sure I'm not totally going down the wrong path in my interpretation of kind of the 2 major endings that we saw in this episode. So with that in mind, let's dive right in. Now, as always, I tend to break up my recap slash review of episodes into the major storylines. And there are like 3 or 4 different storylines going on simultaneously with this episode. It makes it a little more unwieldy, especially because what this episode did best is it does some brilliant cross-cutting between 2 of the storylines and kind of weaves them together, and it makes it much more dramatically powerful. If you remember it toward the end of the latest season of Game of Thrones, they did a similar thing when what's her name? Cersei Lannister is about to, spoiler alert, about to blow up all of her enemies. It was cross-cutting back and forth between like the trial and where she was and that sort of thing, and it was a lot more dramatic and cinematic, and we see a similar thing at play here. So I will have to discuss the last 2 storylines kind of at the same time because we see them at the same time. So let's dive right in. So first storyline I want to discuss is that of Teddy Flood and the Man in Black, which was, I felt, the weakest of the storylines. It was one I still enjoyed. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the Man in Black, but I felt like it had the fewest kind of explosive moments this episode. But we see Teddy Flood, who's not dead. I thought he was dead in the previous episode, but he's not, waking up as that character played by Tallulah Riley. Her name is Angela. She wakes him up, and she basically talks to him about Teddy's exposure to Wyatt in the past, and Teddy thinks he remembers Wyatt when he seemed to be possessed by the devil, just like laying waste to all their friends and I guess in their regiment and like slaughtering a whole town. But then she asks Teddy to kind of remember it again, and then Teddy remembers himself doing a similar thing that he believes Wyatt had done. Whether or not we're supposed to believe that possibly Teddy is Wyatt or not, I don't really think that's the case, because then Angela proceeds to say, perhaps in another life you'll be ready to join Wyatt because he's going to have use of you. And she stabs him and takes him out, which obviously sends him back to the labs to be reprogrammed or having his memory wiped, all that kind of stuff. But I don't quite know what Teddy's role is going to be in Wyatt. And it seems like the storyline of Wyatt seems to just, I don't know, just almost be kind of a red herring, because a distraction from the main central storylines at work. Or maybe they're just, the storyline isn't as well written or well performed. But for whatever reason, I've kind of almost lost interest in Wyatt a little bit. But I remain intensely interested in Man in Black, especially when Angela tells him the maze is not intended for him. The maze is obviously for hosts. A Man in Black wakes up with a noose around his neck, which is tied to a horse, which has a hood over its eyes. But what's cool is that it's a predicament that he could actually die. Like, if he spooks the horse, then he's out. And I feel like Men in Black is finally getting what he wants. He wants stakes. He wants challenges and obstacles to overcome, where if he fails, there's real danger involved. So even though it's not necessarily the maze, I feel like in a cool way, he's finally getting to live the dramatic life that he likes. At any rate, he grabs a knife from Teddy right as the horse bolts due to a coyote, cuts himself free, and who should show up but Charlotte Hale? And Charlotte Hale basically says, like, couldn't you play golf, like, as your diversion? And she asks him for his support in pushing Dr. Ford out of Westworld, and tells him about how Teresa was found dead, so on and so forth. And Men in Black basically says, look, I don't care if Dr. Ford stays or goes, because the storylines that I'm interested in were not those created by Dr. Ford. So he's obviously very interested in the Arnold storylines. So it's very interesting that Men in Black's able to distinguish between the two so clearly, and he rides off. The second major storyline of this is that of Maeve. Maeve wakes up talking to Bernard, and Bernard's asking her all these questions about why she killed the new Dolores, so on and so forth. And Maeve basically tells Bernard that he is a host and refuses to kind of have her memory wiped, or refuses to cooperate in any way, shape, or form, and gets sent back to the, or basically orders them to send her back to the park so she can continue her agenda, which obviously seriously throws Bernard for a loop. And when she gets back to the park, she hunts down Hector and his goons, tells Hector about the fact that they're all basically puppets on the strings, and that his gang is being manipulated into a storyline where they just constantly betray each other, kill each other, all for a safe that's ultimately empty. She very successfully recruits Hector over to her side. He's ready to do as she likes. And she basically says, like, look, well, we need to get back to hell if we're going to steal the blood of the gods or the knowledge of the gods, or something to that effect. And so they start to basically bone in the fire so that they can die and get out of there. And I just have to say that Tanya Newton remains one of the sexiest women alive, because she's doing this crazy thing while they're hooking up. She's doing these little, like, flicking of the tongue, which, you know, call me a freak, but I was intensely interested in that little segment. I mean, she just has so many great lines. I remember at one point she tells Bernard about knowledge is a kind of what's the exact line? It's I've got it written down here. Something to the effect of, compares the truth to a good fuck. She says half is better than none at all. Or no, I'm totally screwing this up. Half is worse than none at all. Yeah, clearly the line had a huge impact on me, because I can't even remember it, and I can't even read it. So anyway, moving on. So the kind of the second to last big remaining storyline in this is the kind of ongoing drama between Will, Logan, and Dolores. You know, Will and Dolores wait up in captivity. Logan loves the fact that he's got this gang of outlaws with him now, and scumbags, and he seems to be having a blast, and he's basically tormenting Will and, like, abusing Dolores. Even at one point cuts her open to reveal her circuitry inside. And Dolores basically explains to these guys, I mean, it seems like Will, what he really wants to do is get Dolores out of the park because he believes she's alive. But Dolores counters very cleverly, if the outside world is so great, how come you guys keep coming here? And she basically describes how Arnold made something beautiful, but it's monsters like Logan who keep messing things up. She slashes his face, tears up some of his boys, and hauls ass. Will and Logan seem to have kind of a reconciliation between the two of them, and Logan thinks they've had this great bonding session. But when Logan wakes up, all of his men have been massacred, and Will basically says that he's learned how to play the game, doesn't want to be called Billy anymore, and is going to use Logan to hunt down Dolores, and then he wants to find her very, very badly, so on and so forth. Now, for me, this kind of reinforces the narrative about the two separate timelines, something that I keep kind of going back and forth on whether or not I believe it, because clearly he's abandoning his identity as Billy, and he's very, very keen on finding Dolores. But I don't know if I'm ready to totally say the two are the same, because this episode has more stuff which kind of suggests that they are. This is where I need help, because Dolores goes off, essentially finishes the maze, sees this crazy flashback where she goes underneath this church and sees kind of the old days of Westworld when Arnold and Dr. Ford were fighting and arguing, and she has this sit down with Arnold, aka Bernard, as we learn this episode, but it all kind of fades away, and we realize that these are all kind of memories of hers. And when she comes back out, she meets the Man in Black. Now, I don't know if that's to suggest that Will's been looking for decades and he's finally found her, or what, or if they're two separate guys. I don't want to say with any certainty. I'm a total coward. I love the storyline, but I feel like whether you want to believe Will and the Man in Black are the same or not, there is evidence in like the two different interpretations of what we see to reinforce both ideas. So we're gonna have to wait and see on that one. But anyway, let's get to the big storyline of this episode, which was Bernard. So this is where I'm gonna need some help, but I feel like I've got a handle on the situation. But we essentially have this great confrontation between Bernard and Dr. Ford, and Bernard uses a reactivated Dolores with a gun pointed at Dr. Ford. Basically says, like, look, I want you to give me back all my memories from the beginning as Bernard. I want to see my memories of when I used to know Arnold, so on and so forth. Anthony Hopkins, Dr. Ford, keeps saying that he designed them, not Arnold. Bernard won't believe it. Once his memories unlocked, so he remembers killing Elsie, something a lot of people pointed out to me that I forgot in my previous video, but they were right. He did, in fact, kill Elsie. He also remembers being shocked and alarmed by Maeve's reaction to the death of her daughter. He truly believes that the hosts are alive. And while a lot of what makes him alive is programming, like hearing a voice, which is essentially their code. It's like an inner consciousness that kind of gives them a soul or a personality. This is kind of like the genius of what Arnold was able to bring to the equation. But as we see, as he remembers more and more and more, and as it's cross-cutting back and forth with Dolores' storyline, and Dolores was remembering what's happened as well, apparently Dolores killed Arnold at some point, which is pretty shocking. I don't quite know why she killed Arnold, or perhaps Arnold had her kill him because he was sick to death about what was happening at the park. We don't really know, but the fact that Dolores killed Arnold, that is pretty damn major. And then, of course, Anthony Hopkins, aka Dr. Ford, really missed his partner in crime, one whom he obviously used to fight with and kind of, argue with about kind of the fate of the park and what it meant to actually try and give these creatures souls. But he clearly missed his friend, needed someone smarter than himself, so he redesigned Arnold as Bernard, gave him his tics, gave him his personality, even gave him some of his memories. And Bernard is totally floored and shocked by this. And so they're having this great conversation, and it's almost like you can kind of tell that, like, you're kind of like Dr. Ford's hoping that he'll be able to keep his friend, and hoping that Bernard won't choose to kind of bring their confrontation totally to a head. But inevitably, there's just no reconciliation between these two guys. Anthony Hopkins, aka Dr. Ford, basically reveals that Bernard has no real control over Clementine at all. Has Clementine turn the gun away from him, give the gun to Bernard, and essentially makes Bernard kill himself. Now, whether or not Bernard is like dead, or just shot himself in the head, so that Dr. Ford can kind of bring him back with those memories wiped, so can continue to be of use. Who knows? We get to see a brief shot in the teaser of Maeve and her group coming into the room where Clementine is kind of standing. We don't quite see Bernard, so I don't know if they're gonna like save Bernard or bring him back or what. There's no way. I refuse to believe we've seen the last of Bernard, but I just want to make sure that I fully understand the nature of the conversation between Bernard and Dr. Ford, and what Bernard was trying to, like, what he was trying to bring about versus what Dr. Ford was trying to bring about. I just don't feel like I fully understand exactly what the conversation was driving toward, but obviously in terms of like the ongoing confrontation, for the time being at least, Dr. Ford has won. So there it is. I'm sorry if I seem so kind of like hesitant about making any like declarative statements about this episode. I really enjoyed this episode, but I feel like it almost raised as many questions as it answered. It gave us some. This show does a great job of giving a little red meat to the fans and giving us some information every episode, but obviously drawing out these mysteries. But what we're going to see is that the next episode's an hour and a half long. It's the last episode we're going to get for like 2 years. hopefully the remainder of our questions will be answered and resolved. But I'm sure we'll all be sitting there in front of our TVs on Sunday waiting to see what happens. So yeah, the teaser looks pretty cool. I'm really, really excited by some of the little details. It was a long teaser too. I'm sure people will be dissecting all the little frames for the next week, trying to figure out what's going to happen. But all we got to do is wait 6-7 days, and we're all going to know. And sadly, one of the best shows in a very, very long time will be drawing to a close for a while. But it's been an absolute blast kind of going along for this ride with everybody. My last video got 13,000 views, which was amazing. Never had a video get that many views before, or had never had anything come close. So it's been a lot of fun covering it, and obviously I'll be doing a review of episode 10 as well. And then I'll have to get some recommendations from you guys on a show that I should follow next, because I'm really, really enjoying doing these YouTube videos and talking about, you know, all the nooks and crannies of a very, very well-produced, well-acted, well-written show, and I just don't know if anything's going to be able to fill that void in the immediate future, but hope I'm wrong. Hopefully there's something amazing to sink my teeth into. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe. I look forward to your answers and your feedback. Remember, be nice, be civil. I'm looking for answers as much as everybody else, so suggestions and alternatives and ideas are always welcome. And yeah, please subscribe to my channel. Give me a shout on Twitter at Colbrax. And please remember to subscribe to my podcast, Wrong Reel, on iTunes. We do not cover Westworld typically. We cover lots of different types of movies, occasionally do TV, but if you like these videos, you'll probably enjoy Wrong Reel as well. Thank you so much for watching, and talk to y'all soon.